what motivates the city to take on these kind of projects. And first and foremost, we are singularly focused on safety. The corridors in Waikiki are some of the ones that have a disproportionate number of our island-wide crashes and other incidents, and so over the long term, when we rehabilitate our streets, that's the time we take to try to make our streets safer. This project has been in the works for over 2 years. We presented a number of alternatives to the community. We made a lot of refinements to the plan here. We're looking to provide a balanced multimodal plan that meets the needs of all users. We're trying to respect all of our users, whether they be automobile users, whether they be bicyclists, or whether they be pedestrians or other users of the street. We have a lengthy presentation here, and we have a lot of people that have signed up for this community meeting. We have 2 hours budgeted for the meeting. I think our staff will probably stick around if there are additional questions, but I'd like to get it back to our presenters. I'd like to turn it back to Daniel Alexander, one of our complete street planners, because we do have a lengthy presentation, and we want to make sure that we get done in time to provide adequate time for the community to ask questions. So without further ado, Daniel, I'll pass it back to you.
Thank you, Director Morton. Yeah, thank you for those introductory remarks and kicking us off. It's a really important project. We're gonna get into why this is such an important project. And yeah, again, aloha everyone. Just a quick note: the meeting is being recorded. It's a public meeting. We look forward to hearing your input. That's going to help us take notes and document this. This recording will be made available later for others to view that weren't able to make it today. So, what we're really trying to do today, we're discussing the plans that we've developed for proposed safety improvements along Alawai Boulevard. And we're going to give you the background on those, how we arrived at them, all that's went in to arriving at those plans. And most important, we want to get your feedback and comments. And we want to see what adjustments we need to make to these plans, and really find something that's going to work and achieve the safety benefits in a way that's most effective and most beneficial to the community. So yeah, mahalo for your involvement. I'll start just by introducing our project team here. So of course, my name is Daniel Alexander, and I'm with the City and County of Honolulu. This is a city-county project, and I'm with the Department of Transportation Services. And we have some great consultants on this team, Nelson Nygaard, and you're going to be hearing from Drusilla Van Hangel and Michael Reby. They'll be doing a significant portion of the presentation. And we have PBR Hawaii also helping us on this project. And Katie and Natalie. Natalie will be doing a lot of our emceeing. We're going to be doing polls throughout this to make sure we're getting input from every single one of you. And she's going to be running those polls and just helping make sure we're running a great meeting. And then we also have another firm, Austin Susumi and Associates, that helped us with a lot of traffic analysis and data collection. And before I move on from this, I just wanted to acknowledge that we have a lot of other members of our City County Department of Transportation Service team. And I'll try to identify them all if I can. I apologize if I missed anyone, but we have Chris Clark here, we have Renee Espiau, we have Chris Sayers, we have Meredith Stoniote, we have Aaron Redoble, and I believe we have Ferdinand Jaro as well. So they're going to be with you in our breakout rooms. They are all part of our project team and involved in this project, very knowledgeable, and they're going to be there to talk you through the designs for detailed questions and to receive your input. So you'll get a chance to see all those folks during our breakout sessions. So I'll keep going here. So give you a sense, a little overview. So I know many of you are familiar with Complete Streets, but a little brief overview on that, what's guiding this at a legislative and high level. Of course, some sense of what the project is and an overview. and then what we've heard, what we've learned, what went into developing the proposed improvements, and then breakout room sessions where we're actually going to dedicate a large portion of our time to those breakout rooms to make sure that we can hear from you all. So what we're really trying to accomplish today, we're trying to share with you, everything that went into these proposed designs, why it's important that we make improvements on this street, and how that went into shaping the proposed design. And make sure that you all have a really good handle on the design, understand what we're proposing, and then, like I said, of course, hear your input. And we have really two key ways we're hearing your input. We have polls throughout, and that's to make sure every one of you can get your voice heard on the different main aspects of the project. But then we have long breakout sessions where we can hear specific questions, and we can have a long conversation with you about it. Next slide. So I think this is where I pass it over to Natalie to go for it, Natalie.
Thank you so much, Daniel. So thank you guys all again for making some time for another virtual meeting. We really appreciate it and know that we have already a good turnout with 122 participants tonight. As part of that, we do ask that you participate in some netiquette, so some net etiquette items to help us run a smooth meeting. We have muted you upon entry. This meeting will be recorded so that the presentation can be shared with others online, and then after the fact, you should be able to share it with anyone that you know that wasn't able to make it. Questions are welcome. We do have people monitoring the chat. So if you want to ask a question or want to make sure that we note something, please put that in the chat box. There's also a raise hand function that we hope you'll use, especially in the breakout sessions. As Director Morton noted, we have a lot of content to get through tonight, so we might be going fast and furious through that part, but the end of the presentation will have quite a bit of time for these breakout rooms. Please also be kind and patient with your other participants on the meeting. We will not tolerate any impersonation or mocking of folks, and we don't want to have to, but if it gets bad, we may need to remove you from the meeting if that is the behavior. So thank you guys all so much again. I know most of you are pretty familiar with Zoom functions, but just some quick reminders on how to mute and unmute. In the presentation or the breakout rooms, there's little icons on your screen that should look like this microphone and video camera. If you are having trouble with video speed, or if we're sounding glitchy, if you turn off your video, it will probably function better. Then there's also how to chat, see, and raise hands. So for this, you can see the participants if you click on the icon for participants and raise your hand. And then there is also the chat function, which it will go to in a second if you want to send us messages. And if you're having any trouble, Ty from our office will be keeping an eye on the chat. So feel free to message him and we can try to help you as well. Then if you're on the phone app, it's also possible to raise your hand from there. So if you can see this on your phone, there's 3 dots in the bottom corner, and then you should be able to raise your hand or chat from that. And just in the off chance our presentation is looking small to you, there is a way to change the view options. So the side-by-side mode, and then toggling it from left to right to make sure that you can see the speaker and the presenter. And finally, one of the main things that we're going to be doing tonight before the breakout rooms and during the presentation are some polls. So to do that, a window should pop up on your screen with a couple different options. Choose your response, and then make sure you hit the submit button so we can see the poll results. And we'll be sharing those as we go through the presentation. So with that, we're just going to do a couple kind of fun warm-up polls so that you guys can practice that real quick, and then we'll get into the presentation portion. So the first question, which is a warm-up poll, is did you attend the first meeting on April 14th, 2021? So we just opened up that poll and it should have popped open. Oh, yeah, we're getting, people are responding really fast on this one. All right, we're at 79% participated. All right, 83, 84. I'll give a couple more seconds. All right. And then can you guys see the shared results? So 18%, 15 out of 84 respondents did participate at that last meeting. 76 said that they did not. And we have 5 people who do not remember. I feel like I'm in that same boat. It's hard to remember what happened that long ago. Okay, so we're gonna close that poll and we're gonna warm up or do warm-up poll number 2. So this question is, what is your favorite way of getting around Oahu? Is it walking or rolling? So that could be with a stroller, a wheelchair, bicycling, skateboarding, the bus, driving, taking a boat. If I had a boat, I'd probably choose that one. Swimming, I could only do that for very short distances. I'm not a long distance swimmer, so would love to see your responses. And it looks like we still have some responses coming in. You guys are so fast at these though. All right, a couple more seconds. All right, it looks like most people on the call drive with 44%, followed by 25% that bicycle. That's awesome. And then 21% that walk or roll, and 10% that take the bus. Sadly, apparently none of us have boats. So some of these responses are similar to last time. I'm still sharing the results so that you hopefully can see. But like last time, nobody swims or takes a boat. Driving was 35% last time, so it's a little bit higher this time with 44%. Walking and rolling was 33% last time. This time it's 21%. And bicycling was 27% last time and 25% this time. So pretty close. So with that, I think we're gonna get on into the presentation, but just keep in mind that a couple of these polls are gonna come up. So get ready for them.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm glad everyone's into the polling. Thank you all for participating. Those were fun, but moving forward, they're going to be really important for providing us feedback on the project. So I want to start just by giving you an overview of Complete Streets. So we have a Complete Streets law in place, and basically it's about making our streets work for all users, work safely for all users. And it's a really important law established in 2012 that instructs a lot of our work in terms of making sure that we're making it safer for everyone on the streets and that we're balancing the needs of all users, whether they be walking, in a wheelchair, on a bike, riding transit, or in a car. So this goes into really shaping our projects. So next. And this is just kind of an idealized vision of it. And so you see we have a place for all the users. This isn't what every Complete Streets looks like, but this is kind of the ideal vision of it. You have a place for general purpose traffic. You have a place for buses. You have a dedicated protected place for people on bikes. And you have wide sidewalks that are ADA accessible and safe crossings and all that accommodate pedestrians safely as well. Next slide. So jumping into our project, What we're talking about tonight is Alawai Boulevard, and our project's extents go from Kapahulu Avenue to Kalakaua Avenue. And the opportunity really is that this street is going to be repaved in the near future. And so the practice of our Complete Streets program is when we have a repaving project coming up, we look at how we can make that street better. That's the kind of unique opportunity to get those improvements in a really cost-effective way. So in the coming years, Alawai Boulevard is slated for repaving, and at that time, the improvements that come out of this plan would go in at that time. So, and these are the extents of that repaving project. So that's really what we're tied to and the unique opportunity we have here. So moving along. So give you a sense of where we are in the process. So, for about 2 years, we've been working on this project in earnest. And we went out, we did a lot of data collection. We did a lot of hearing from people, understanding what the values and the interests of folks were within the community. And we started developing designs. And now we've got a draft design and draft plan that we're ready to bring to you all and hear more about how we responded to those issues effectively, and do we need to make adjustments to it before we finalize those plans so they can move forward. So I'm going to go into describing some of the existing conditions on Alawai Boulevard. I'm sure many of you are intimately familiar with it, and you're experts on your own regard, and we look forward to hearing some of that expertise. But this is some of what we found through our analysis. So at a basic description, Alawai Boulevard, it kind of has two fundamental sections. It has one where there's curb extensions in place and parking, 24/7, and 3 lanes of travel, and a conventional and protected bike lane with the direction of traffic, and then sidewalks on each side. And as you move a little further west, the EVA end of the corridor, it goes to 4 lanes. You have no bicycle facility, and the sidewalks kind of remain the same, except they don't have the added buffer of the curb extension or bulb outs on the Melka or canal side. Next slide. So really important in our projects, we're trying to make it safer for everyone. So we really dig hard into the safety data. So this is a map of 5 years of collisions that resulted in injuries on the corridor. And you see it's, along it, you have kind of a steady and significant number of dots along there. And they're both, motorists as well as bicyclists and pedestrians. And, over this 5-year period, it's 110 total injury crashes for the different modes. And we'll get a bit more into the specific modes with the next slide. So as part of our Oahu pedestrian plan, we really did a deep dive into the pedestrian safety data. And part of that was identifying areas where we're having disproportionate share of pedestrian injuries and fatalities. And 5 intersections were identified on this corridor as high pedestrian injury, where we're having really a disproportionate share of our problems. And so those are highlighted here. So we really know those are prominent problem places and areas that we need to be looking to make improvements. And so that's really, I think, a fundamental goal of this project, is addressing these known safety needs for pedestrians that we dig more into with this plan, but also for motorists as well. And I have I think the next slide is on bicycle safety as well. Speeds. So speeds are really important for understanding safety within a corridor. So Alawai Boulevard, our project area, is 35 miles an hour. And what's interesting is speeds are actually relatively consistent with that. You see this shows the 85th percentile. That's the speed at which most people are going at or under. And you see there's generally not high levels of speeding, but that speed of 40 miles an hour you see there at the left is a speed that is really not a good speed for an environment where you have people mixing with cars at such high levels as we do on Alawai Boulevard, and certainly contributes to the safety issues that we're seeing out there for pedestrians, but also for all users. Next slide. So, this slide really digs into why that speed is so important. What's shown there on the right is at 20 miles an hour, a pedestrian has a very high chance of surviving being hit by a car, 95% chance of survival. And then if you push that speed up to 30 miles an hour, it goes down really considerably, goes down to 45% chance of, or 45%, in the inverse would be 55% chance of survival, and 45% chance of death. And if it goes up to 40, that speed we were just seeing there on Alawai Boulevard, it becomes a 15% chance of survival for the pedestrians. So this is really instructive in understanding why it's so important to address speeds and keep them at a safe level, or safer level, on a corridor like we're talking about on Alawai Boulevard, where we have so much mixing of the different modes. Next slide. So bicycle safety. So I think folks that bicycle this probably have an acute sense that it's not the safest. Particularly, this picture is taken at McCully Street, and this is in the section where there is no bicycle lane, and there's 2 right turn lanes, and that bicyclist is kind of doing their best to be where they think is safest, but you can tell they're pretty exposed out there. And the next slide actually digs into the data. In reality, that perception that I think either if you bike there or what you could probably detect in that picture we just looked at, that is showing up in the data in terms of the number of injuries. So along that furthest EVA section where there is no bike lane, we've seen a really significant number of bicycle injuries. And just to note, when we say injuries, we mean that there's an EMS response, that it was bad enough that an ambulance came to respond to it. Even along the rest of the corridor where we have a conventional bike lane, we see injuries section. Honestly, we're in the process of doing our Vision Zero action plan that's going to look at the island-wide, and we started to dig in, and even along this section, it is one of our higher bicycle injury corridors at island level. So even in that area where we have the bicycle facility, we are seeing a significant number of injuries there. But the difference is really stark when you get over in that EVA section where there's no dedicated bicycle facilities. The rate per mile is about 5x of what it is on the bike lane. So we're not doing great in the section where there is a bike lane, and it's really, really bad in the section where there isn't a bike lane. Next slide. So this goes over some of the proposed facilities along in the project area. And I'm not going to go over it in great detail. This is from our Oahu bicycle plan. And it does propose a protected bike lane along the length of our corridor. And you see some of the other bicycle connections in there as well. Of course, McCully Street, which exists, at Kapalua, which exists, and then the future Alawai pedestrian and bicycle bridge. Next slide. So, I think as Director Morton said, we really, this project is about balancing the demands on this street. It's a street that serves, a diverse community and a diverse set of needs. And part of that is vehicular traffic and making sure the street continues to support the vehicular traffic that's there. And so these are traffic volumes, daily traffic volumes along the corridor, and which it works from east to west if you're working from right to left. And what you can see is it's a little less than 20,000 vehicles a day at Palakalani. And it goes up slightly at Nohonani, which is near Seaside. And then it goes up quite a bit more at Kalemoku. And then it goes up quite a bit more at Powell Street. Basically, there's much less traffic at the Diamond Head end as it starts. And as you progress through Waikiki, each side street adds additional traffic to the street. And that builds up as you go towards McCully. And so this is something that's been really instructive in our design and making sure that we continue to support the traffic that's out there. Next slide. So we do conduct detailed traffic analysis on every signalized intersection. We have modeling software that we take real world counts and we plug in and we validate the process to make sure what it's showing for existing conditions is what is actually occurring out there. And so this shows level of service. It's kind of a technical term, but I think everyone gets the A through F concept. F is bad, A is good. So generally A through C is considered relatively free flowing. And as you get closer, F is at the point where you're experiencing pretty severe traffic. And then D is, you're starting to see some strains. And so what you note along the corridor, most of it operates at a level of service A. So essentially nearly free flowing or nearly free flowing conditions. And then the really tough parts that we have are at Kalakaua Avenue, where it's operating very poorly. And then at the intersection with Kapalulu and Paki, where it's operating somewhat poorly. So, this analysis, which we'll provide later for what we're proposing, you'll see how we've really worked with this to try to maintain the vehicular level of service. Next slide. So of course, another function of the street is it provides parking, and it's a significant number of parking spots. It's 198. It's unmarked, so that's that's an approximate number, but that's what we would see out there if we go and count. So just placing it in the context of parking within Waikiki, and we have done Waikiki-wide parking studies. It's a small percentage of the overall public parking within Waikiki. It's 3% of the overall parking. And even if you look at all the on-street parking, it's still a small percentage of that total. And then another thing is, we looked at the occupancy of the parking, how it's being used, the patterns of its use. And as many would know, it's very highly utilized. It's very hard to find a spot. And then when we went and looked at turnover, where we actually do recording to see if cars moved, and we found that it's not being used by that many cars actually, though. If you average it out, it's about 1.5 vehicles per parking spot per day that are using the parking spot along LOI. So it's currently really heavily utilized, but it's not servicing a large number of folks. Next slide. So here's some commute data on the Waikiki community is shown there at the right, and it's compared to both urban Honolulu and island-wide. And I'll just delve into the Waikiki. And as you can see, a little over half of commuters use a motor vehicle as their primary commute mode. And then we have really significant points of people that are walking, taking transit, and bicycling. So the walking and bicycling make up 30% of all commuters within Waikiki. And this is folks that actually live in Waikiki and how they're getting around. And you can see that's much higher than what we see even within urban Honolulu or island-wide. So next slide, please.
And I just want to note that we do have a hand raised, but if you could provide your comment in the chat box right now, and we will have more of a discussion during the breakout groups. Thank you.
So here's the car ownership within Waikiki. And what we found is that Waikiki households, you know, not only they're walking, biking, they're taking transit at really high rates, but a lot of them don't even own a car. You know, it's nearly a third of households within Waikiki that don't own a car. And then a really large portion have one car. So what we consider car light households, where if it's a couple, that means that one of them is getting around without a car on an everyday basis. It's a really small number of households that have 2 or more cars. And of course, that compares to the island. You can see it there, that you know, it is a relatively car light community. And folks that are really, in some cases, dependent on walking, biking, and taking the bus. Next slide, please. So some of the background on our community outreach. In 2021, we came out, we had a community meeting. I understand from our polls earlier that not necessarily many of you were there, but we got some really great input at that community meeting that went in to help shape the project. We've been to the neighborhood boards. We've done a lot of stakeholder meetings, reaching out to folks like Jefferson Elementary and other folks. We've done door-to-door outreach. Those pictures there on the right highlight canvassing we did to make sure people knew about the project and knew about opportunities to provide input, including canvassing we did recently a couple weeks ago. We had a web map and an online comment feature to get comments that way from people, and of course, people providing comments via email and phone. Next slide. So here's kind of some of the takeaways for what we heard. I think you know, we heard these desires or you know, needs, interests in improving the street. And one thing we heard really loud and clear was the desire for better and safer bike facilities. We also heard a desire for improving the pedestrian environment and a sense that safety could be improved for pedestrians, including by adding new crossings and bringing down vehicular speeds. We definitely heard that we want to be balancing the multimodal needs of the street, and I kind of went over some of those already, but they also include, you know, the street is an important emergency response corridor, and of course we have many large vehicles that operate it. The bus does not operate on it, but many of our private transit providers use the corridor. And we heard about how it's a beautiful street, and I think many of you know and appreciate that it has the scenic views of the canal, but it also has you know, beautiful greenery. And yeah, so these were the things, some of the things that we tried to advance in our plans. So next slide. So here's a little summary of the online comments we received. I won't go over it in great detail, but the majority of the comments were focused on bicycle and pedestrian safety. Next slide. So some of what we heard in that kickoff meeting. So we asked people what mode that they thought was most in need of improvements on the street, and we heard kind of resounding that bicycling was the mode that most needed to be improved. And of course, walking and motor vehicles were in there as well. Next slide. And when we got into talking about some of the improvements, we heard a particularly strong interest in protected bike lanes and speed reduction. Those came out as our top, and then new pedestrian crossings, curb extensions, shared use path. You can see the interest there, and we've tried to roll with that. Next slide. And then when we delved into asking more about what people were willing to give up for one of those features, for the shared use path or the protected bike lane, we kind of threw out these options, which we're going to say we heard at that time people willing to sacrifice the travel lane. That was their greatest interest, and then parking removal, and then off-peak parking, and then some that didn't support any change. And you'll see we really delved into each of these options and to try to figure out what balances the needs of all the users the most effectively. Next slide. All right, with this, I'm going to pass it on to our great consultants, Nelson Nygaard and Drew, ready to take it away.
Great. Mahalo, Daniel. So as Daniel was saying, we explored all of the options from the community engagement to date and balanced the considerations in framing this project, maintaining general purpose lanes where traffic is heaviest. I want to review first what we reviewed before we got to the point of having a proposed improvement project in front of you tonight. What we reviewed included an analysis of capacity and delay, the need to maintain turning movements for big vehicles and buses into and out of Waikiki, parking utilization, as well as safety needs. And as such, we actually ended up needing to use a balance of these options in order to move through the alternatives we discussed at the first meeting and into the proposed improvements. The PROS project is a balance that maintains general purpose lanes where traffic is heaviest, including safety improvements to address the history of collisions. And it looks for opportunities to maintain parking. And it also acknowledges, we also acknowledge a reduction in some bikeway width in some places to make sure turning and through movement needs are designed into the project. The proposed changes include a two-way, I'm going to just run through the list. Thank you. If you can back up one slide. The proposed changes include a two-way protected bikeway, curb extensions, additional pedestrian crossings, pedestrian crossing beacons, where the number of travel lanes is maintained at 3, speed limit reduction to 25 miles per hour, lighting improvements, and time of day parking changes. And so we have moved forward after lots of analysis and in consideration of the safety benefits on balance with the parking and through travel lane needs. So I would like to start to talk about the two-way protected bike lanes. On the next slide, you can see the current conditions. Along much of Alawai Boulevard, there's a bike lane in the same direction of travel between parking and fast-moving traffic. We know this existing conventional bike lane is relatively high stress and just isn't the sort of bikeway many people feel comfortable bicycling, in addition to only being one way. Between Keoneana Street and McCulley Street on the next slide, there is no bike lane and bicyclists share the lane with traffic. We have heard from so many that this area serves as a major barrier to cycling on Alawai Boulevard and in Waikiki. In order to improve this experience, we looked to our other bikeways that exist on the island, specifically protected bike lanes. We have seen ridership increase with these bikeways that are in place already, and we know, if you can go to the next slide, that there are positive impacts of protected bike lanes from national studies on all people using our streets. We have specifically documented safety benefits locally here on South King Street, where there has been a 50% reduction in pedestrian injuries since the protected bike lane was installed. So the two-way protected bikeway is proposed to connect from Kapahulu Avenue to Kalakaua. This bikeway type will support riders traveling EVA by taking them out of the travel lanes, and people walking and bicycling Diamond Head will experience safer conditions as well, because riders are able to get off the sidewalk to travel towards Diamond Head. It also provides the opportunity to introduce more legal pedestrian crossings without traffic signals because of reduced travel lanes, and provides a connected experience for all active transportation users. The benefits, on the next slide, please. The benefits of this alternative include speed reduction, which provides safety benefits for all road users, reduced pedestrian crossing distance and exposure, increased visibility of pedestrians, a better organized street for all roadway users, including, as I mentioned, having the sidewalk be dedicated for pedestrians and dedicated bikeway for bicyclists. We're illustrating the improvement here. The two-way protected bike lane is proposed to be a 24-hour per day facility. This rendering illustrates a section of the proposed bikeway as the general purpose lanes transition from 2 lanes with parking to 3 lanes without parking during the peak hour, and then back to 2 lanes with parking overnight when the demand from traffic is higher and when the demand from traffic is lower and the demand for parking is higher. We're going to go through each of these cross sections together. The materials on the next slide, we have some potential materials for this protection. They've not yet been selected, and we'd like your community input tonight on this during the breakout rooms. The intent is to have vertical separation that supports the aesthetics of the canal and quay while providing the protection that keeps drivers from mounting the curb to park or inadvertently making a turn into the bike lane. And now, next slide, please. I will share information about these, about 3 typical sections along Alawai Boulevard. The traffic volumes in this section from Kapahulu to Nohonani are significantly lower than in the section closer to Macaulay, as Daniel provided information about previously. So in this section, 1 lane for general purpose travel by cars, trucks, and buses will be removed, and the parking will be moved 12 feet away from the canal. Analysis for this option confirms that the quality of the driving experience will be acceptable and comparable to today's experience. The 2 lanes section also provides wider travel lanes in order to better accommodate emergency vehicles when they need to respond directly on Alawai Boulevard. From Nohonani to Keoneana Street, the parking lane becomes the parking lane becomes an additional travel lane to match existing 3 travel lanes during the daytime hours. It converts to parking overnight when the traffic demand is lower. And then on the 3rd typical cross section here, where the general purpose traffic is heaviest from Keoneana to Macaulay, 3 lanes of traffic and 2 lanes for the right turn onto the bridge will be maintained. Where these lanes are needed all day long, this design is accomplished in part by removing the bulb outs and relocating the trees that are on them. This design with the additional lanes maintains the capacity for trucks, buses, and cars based on both our community input, a trial demonstration we conducted last year, and technical studies. And Mike's going to tell us more about that.
Aloha, everyone. I'll be taking over here, and we'll just be looking at the final block of the proposed bikeway between Macaulay and Kalakaua. So this slide here shows the 2-way bikeway on that last block after Macaulay Street. So a 2-way bikeway here would help get people further west in Waikiki and towards the Ala Moana area. It'll also connect the 2-way section of Alawai Boulevard west of Kalakaua, where is much lower stress for cycling. So it's a 2-lane road on the other side of Kalakaua. And this can be done by utilizing a redundant channelized turn lane that exists. You can see there on the bottom photo. And we won't have to remove any through lanes or impact any traffic at the Kalakaua intersection, where Daniel showed you earlier that traffic was the worst. So we won't be making any changes there or removing any lanes to continue the bikeway forward. And so this next section will go into some of the trade-offs made with the needs of different modes and street users. So this slide shows our technical drawing of the Macaulay Street intersection. So this is one of the busiest intersections along our corridor. And here we looked at lane configurations with several different options. We studied removing actually the second right turn pocket onto Macaulay. We found out that was needed through testing and modeling due to the high traffic demand during the peak hour. And so we ended up making a design change here. And so what we've done, and you can see, is that we've moved the bikeway up to the sidewalk level so it becomes a mixed use path, and so that we're able to preserve that second right turn pocket. So just starting to show some of the balances that we've made through the design as we've worked through it. And we already showed this slide, but just reiterate again, as we consider whether this was the right solution to implement our bikeway connections, we did evaluate the impacts on vehicle traffic, parking supply, and trees, which I'll talk a little bit more about here. So this graph shows that we showed before, shows that significant drop in traffic as you go further Diamond Head. And so we were looking specifically where a 2-lane Alawai Boulevard could work, and then where those 3-lane sections were needed during the day, where most people are actually driving, and they may not be needed overnight. And so, oh, great, thanks. Perfect, I didn't even have to say next slide. So this is a schematic of the number of travel lanes, just to kind of give an overview that Drusilla just mentioned in the cross-section views. So from Keoneana to Nohonani, there would be 3 lanes all day, 6 a.m. to 7 p.m., and then 2 lanes overnight in that stretch. And then as you go further Diamond Head, where traffic is significantly less than half the amount of vehicles per day using it, there would be 2 travel lanes from 24 hours. And by doing that, we're able to preserve parking 24 hours and preserve the curb extensions where there are trees, which I'll talk about in a second. And this is this is the second form of the slide that we showed earlier, just showing that we did do detailed traffic analysis along the full corridor We studied it at the highest peak hour volume of the day, which is the morning peak. And we used many different scenarios and configurations, and this is what we ultimately came up with, and this is what those final results show. So this slide slows the existing and with project level of service. So you saw the top part before is existing, and on the bottom is what's proposed. So you can see most intersections are not changing. Some are changing marginally, but they're still within tolerances. And then you have those intersections on the end, Kalakala and Kapahulu, where we aren't making any lane configuration changes that would reduce the capacity, so they stay the same. So balancing needs of parking is something that we took great consideration for. So there's currently 198 spaces on Alloy Boulevard, Danielle mentioned earlier. These project plans provide 177 spaces. So we do have a marginal reduction. So you can see on that peak hour or daytime, sorry, rather, towaway area between Kioniana and Nohonani. 88 of the spaces that exist there right now would all remain. However, it would just become overnight parking only. So they would still be able to be parked at overnight. During the day, they would be no parking. When you go onto the other side, the area in blue from Nohonani to Kapahulu, that would be 24-hour parking. That's where we see a bit of reduction, and that's in order to preserve the curb extensions and the trees in the area. And so we're able to actually add 20 new spaces over near Kapahulu, which I think we have on the next slide here, to try to get some of that parking back that we would need to remove for retaining the curb extension. So we're able to add new full-time parking near Jefferson Elementary and the library over near Kapahulu. So 20 stalls there would be added. So just in summary, there's 177 parking spaces left of the 198. So we're only removing 21 spaces along the corridor. And lastly, trees. Mentioned that a few times as we went along here. There's 316 total trees on the canal side, on the Mauka side. And this proposal impacts 56 trees, and that's through the removal of the 9 bulb outs as you go further EVA. Where the 3-lane section is. To maintain 3 lanes, we would need to remove those curb extensions, which means the trees would be impacted. And so according to the Division of Urban Forestry and the Waikiki Special District requirements, all of those impacted trees in good health would be moved to suitable locations. And so any other remainder would be replaced 1-to-1 with new healthy trees. And that would help us meet our resiliency goals. We did look at prior alternatives. Where we had maintained 3 lanes throughout the whole stretch of the corridor. And that would impact basically all of the trees in those curb extensions, as you see here in the photo. And so we ended up balancing those needs, and we're impacting far less in this alternative that we're presenting to you tonight. I think with that, we're moving into some polls, so Natalie's going to take over.
Helps if I unmute, right? So we have one poll right now that we're going to do. I see that we have a lot of thoughts in the chat box. I want to thank you guys all so much for participating in it. Some of them are coming faster than I can keep track of, but we are recording them and we'll be keeping them all in mind as we go forward. So with that, we're going to do our first topical poll, which is thoughts specifically on the 2-way protected bike lane. So we've opened the poll. It's like it, but mostly like it. The mostly like it category is if you predominantly support, but think that there's some adjustments that need to be made, whether that's location of it or the width, or I'm just throwing out random things. And if you do, please put that portion, the adjustment portion, in the comment box. If you're neutral on it, that's if I don't care if we have it, I don't care if we don't have it. Don't like it is if you don't like it, and then not sure is if you have no idea anything that was just presented. So those are the options for this evening. And once again, we are keeping track of the chat, and we super appreciate all of your involvement in that. So we're going to leave this open a little bit longer. Right now we have almost 90 responses. So I'll leave it open just a little bit longer. Couple more seconds. All right, it looks like the answers are no longer coming in. So can you guys see the results? It looks like 41 of 94 people, so 44% like it. 24 followed by 24 out of 94, so 26% mostly like but need some adjustments. So if you have ideas for adjustments, please add those in the chat box. And that's tied with 26%, 24 respondents that don't like it, and 3 and 2 respectively that are neutral or not sure. So thank you guys so much for that. Once again, this is just to kind of get an initial sense. And we have tons of time set at the back end for breakout rooms where we'll have conversations with, on these different areas. So with that, I think we're going to go to additional pedestrian crossings. Yeah, Mike?
Yeah, thanks, Natalie. So yeah, we're going to talk about many other treatments that we're adding to this area. So there's much more to this project than making the bikeway, and we heard from prior engagement the desire to make the street safer for people walking in Waikiki as well. Daniel was showing you the statistics. Lots of people walk in the area, and it's very dense. And you know, in addition to just getting the bikeway, two-way bikeway on the street, which gets people riding off of the sidewalk as one main benefit, we did have the opportunity to look at pedestrian crossing opportunities. And we conducted analysis along the corridor, and this was in response to people's requests for specifically for better and more frequent crossings. So there are very long gaps between the legal crosswalks now. This really tempts people to cross between intersections where crossing is technically prohibited. There's don't walk signs. And there's very long distances. So you see here, there's several stretches where there's almost a quarter mile of a difference between, or a distance between crossing opportunities. And if you go to the next slide, the lack of these crossing opportunities really does not keep people from crossing the street. And you can see here from these images, people are crossing outside of these legal crosswalks. And that's just because they simply don't have the opportunity to cross. Walking out of the way would be you know, detrimental to whatever they're doing. That amount of distance, it would take much longer time. And so they actually just cross when there are gaps. We were able to do some observations in a 1 hour period, and we observed these numbers here that you see in red are the number of people crossing between those legal crossings. And so there's a significant amount of folks using these crossings where they're really not supposed to. And so with this, our plan on the next slide is to create 3 new pedestrian crossings, one at Namahana, one at Nahua, and then one at Ainakea. And that was based on the evaluations that we did and just showed you on those slides of the amount of people crossing and trying to create those kind of mid-block opportunities. And so with these new crosswalks, a variety of support treatments will be included. So signage and other treatments to increase the ability of people waiting to cross. And this will increase the yield compliance for people driving. So at Nahua and Ainakea, where there's a 2-lane section, there would just be signage. And then what you can see here at Namahana, there would be supported with a rectangular rapid flash beacon. So this is a proven safety countermeasure, and it reduces crashes and increases yield compliance, especially during the nighttime. So this is a light up sign that would be actuated by a pedestrian wanting to cross where there's not a signal. And so this would be the treatment at the Namahana location. And then we'd like to show a rendering of this. So this represents a sample of what the crossing would look like at the Nahua location. And we can transition from the existing conditions where you currently can't cross the street, or you're not allowed to, rather. And this rendering shows the curb extension, where the sidewalk would be extended out, a new pedestrian crossing, parking would be retained at this location for 24 hours. And there would be 2 travel lanes. And so pedestrian would only need to cross 2 travel lanes, and they would also have this curb extension into side streets, which I'll talk about in our next segment. And you also see the warning signage facing the vehicle drivers so that they can see that there's a crosswalk here and that they would need to yield.
So we have another poll. This one is, do you support additional crossings of Alawai Boulevard? Same response options as last time. Like it, mostly like it, but need some adjustments. Neutral, so that's if you don't like it or dislike it, just ambivalent. Don't like it or not sure. Let's see if we can get the same amount of respondents as last time. We're at 93, so one person hasn't responded that maybe responded last time. Couple more seconds. All right, oh, we got a couple more. So can you guys see the results? We have 58% like it, 24% mostly like it, but need some adjustments. Once again, if you guys have recommended adjustments, please put those in the chat box. That'd be very helpful for us. 3% neutral, 12% don't like, and another 3% that are not sure. All right, back to you, Mike.
Thank you. So this next section, we're going to talk about side street curb extensions. So another complete streets feature we looked at implementing were curb extensions that go into the side streets. So this can benefit the safety of all roadway users, and it improves awareness between people driving and walking primarily. So the design team was able to look at every cross street on our corridor here, and we prioritized locations for curb extensions based on the existing site conditions. We were able to rate them based on the ease of implementation and the benefit that they would serve. So we ended up determining that 16 of the 21 cross streets between McCully and Kapahulu would be suitable, could be suitable for curb extensions. And then on the next slide, just showing some examples of those for people that may be unfamiliar. These are curb extensions in a variety of forms. These ones are actually found in Waikiki on Kuhio Avenue. These ones have landscaping in them. And then on the next slide, there are some more in other neighborhoods outside of Waikiki using a variety of different construction methods. So the type of curb extension that ultimately ends up getting built as part of these recommendations, it'll be determined in later engineering design stages. So we want to look at the grading, the utilities, and funding considerations, of course. So we were able to kind of get a leg up in that and be able to prioritize them. And so we prioritize them and showing all 16 of them in these locations on this plan. And then we can show an example, again, going back to that rendering, the intersection at Nohua on the next slide. Was identified as a place that would benefit from a curb extension. So you see here the crossing distance on the side street is 45 feet. There's a hatched out area right now, and then the rendering that we just showed shows the curb moving out and the sidewalk widening in that area of excess pavement. You decrease the crossing distance significantly. And so this benefits, the benefits for this are multiple, that they slow the speed of turning vehicles. They make it a lot easier for drivers to see people crossing the street, and for also people crossing the street to see if there's oncoming traffic. And it reduces the crossing distance significantly, the time it takes to cross the street, and it reduces the exposure. And so the benefits are pretty significant, and all you need to do is just fill in that excess pavement.
And we have another poll. This one is with regards to those curb extensions that Mike just talked about. So we'll get that one opened up for you. Same categories again, like it, mostly like, but need some adjustments. If you select that one, please put in the chat box. Neutral, don't like, or not sure. And once again, thank you guys so much for all of the chat and conversation going on. Really looking forward to taking some time to go back through that and make sure we capture everything. So, okay, we're at 93. I think last time we had 95. All right, we're at 95 again. I like that number. So for this one, 60% like it, followed by 17% mostly like, but need some adjustments. Once again, if you have adjustments, please put them in the chat and we can talk about them more during the breakout groups, followed by 15% that don't like it, 6% that are neutral, and 2% that are not sure. So thank you guys so much. And I think it is
Me.
Drew,
There are two-
yeah.
Thank you, Natalie. There are two more elements of this project, proposed project, that we'd like to talk through with you before going into the breakout rooms. And the first of the remaining two is speed limit reductions. As Daniel described, as driving speeds increase, the possibility that a crash happening with a person walking or biking will have life-changing or fatal impacts increases. Currently, the speed limit is 35 miles per hour on Alawai, except in the area in the immediate vicinity of Jefferson Elementary School, where the school zone speed limit is 25 miles per hour. In order to generally make Alawai Boulevard safer, and also in consideration that there will be more vulnerable users on the street, in the protected bike lanes, and at these crossings, DTS visited the possibility of removing the citywide 25 mile per hour exception on Alawai and reducing the speed to a limit that increases the possibility that someone walking or biking will survive if they're hit by a car. And so in order to support this recommendation, we took speed surveys on all lanes on Alawai throughout the day. The chart here is not only very colorful, but it tells us a lot of information. It starts on the left in the midnight hour and ends at the 11 p.m. hour on the right. The colors reflect the percent of drivers in each hour driving at the speeds binned in green at up to 24 miles per hour, yellow at 25 to 29, and so on through to the right, to purple being over 40 miles per hour. Well over half of the traffic much of the day is going over 30 miles per hour. That speed at which there's a 50% chance a person would have life-changing or fatal injuries if hit by a car. Plus, we have 5 to 10% of drivers going well over the speed limit at more than 40 miles per hour, and that's in the purple colors up at the right. This is in part because the street is currently designed for the small periods of time that constitute the peak hour. And when you design for that time of day, people are able to speed during the rest of the day when fewer cars are on the road. So with this data in hand and the legal possibility of reducing the speed limits back to the citywide speed limit of 25 miles per hour, DTS proposes to use that to reduce the speed limit on Alawai to 25 miles per hour to increase safety as these new facilities are brought on board. This would have the benefit of improving safety for all roadway users. And this is supported by other island-wide work that we're doing that explains that nearly 1/3 of traffic fatalities on Oahu actually involve excessive speed. Oh, thanks. I'm sorry, didn't say next slide. And in addition, the 25 mile per hour speed and the designs which target the which give cues to the drivers at 25 miles per hour is actually the appropriate speed to drive, will support multimodal activity and bring Alawai in line with the 25 mile per hour Waikiki district-wide speed limit. Just as some background and support for you all, Ala Moana Boulevard was recently changed to 25 miles per hour as well. So I think we're going to go to a poll here. Turn it over to you, Natalie.
Thank you. Might be the most interesting poll of the night. Oh, sorry, I was still sharing the results for that last one. All right, so do you like the idea of a 25 mile per hour speed limit? Do you think it should be higher than 25 miles per hour? Do you think it should be lower than 25 miles per hour? Do you not care one way or the other what the speed limit is? So those are the options for this poll. And once again, we're really looking forward to kind of having more conversations on these in the breakout rooms as well. Well, I think this one's a little bit harder for people. The responses aren't coming in as fast. We're at 89 responses, a couple more seconds. 91. All right, I think we've slowed down. So with 91 responses, we have 62% that like it, 32% that think it should be higher than 25 miles per hour,
Natalie,
4%. Yeah.
sorry to interrupt. There's a couple people who said they can't vote.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Let me,
I don't know if we closed it too quick or if there was a glitch. Sorry.
there may have been a glitch. Let me see here. It doesn't, hold on. I'm not sure if I hit relaunch, if everyone's gonna have to re-answer.
Let's try it. Is that okay?
We're
with
gonna
everyone?
try it. Okay.
Sorry for that.
Yeah, it's gonna clear the existing polling results. Is everybody ready?
And just in response to some of the comments that folks are making, the speed limit reduction is proposed to complement the design changes that we're proposing. And so some of the, well, that's probably enough explanation.
And thank you folks who already answered once and are answering again. We really appreciate it so everyone can participate. For those of you that were having trouble, did it show up this time? I don't see any chats right now. Yes, okay, thank you, Brian. All right, we're at 91 again. Melody, thank you also for being able to vote. Should we give it a couple more seconds just in case? We good? Okay, we're at 91 again. All right. So 57% like it, 31% think it should be higher, 8% think it should be lower, and 4% are neutral on it. So once again, really looking forward to the breakout room conversations.
Great, thank you. And one last element of the project includes lighting improvements. With all of the Complete Streets rehabilitation projects underway, we are now assessing our safety lighting and looking for opportunities to improve lighting. Lighting of crosswalks and intersections is especially important because intersections are the places where there are larger opportunities for conflicts because more people are using them. Visibility is critical for safety of all roadway users during the dark hours. And this image here on this slide shows the computer modeling software used to show where light is cast from the existing fixtures. Where existing lighting is insufficient to illuminate people walking and bicycling at intersections, we'll be exploring ways to include more lighting. And the lighting study that's underway as a complement on the, oh, you're there already. The lighting study that's underway as a complement to the study will identify if new lights are needed and if the lighting level adjustments need to be made. Lights have already been upgraded to LED throughout the city, and they are capable of being adjusted remotely, which is something that was news to me and may be news to you as well. And there's no poll about this one, but there's more input to be gained. Thank you, Natalie.
Thank you so much, Joe. So with that, we do actually have one more polling question. And this one is a select all that apply. And it's kind of looking at all of the different options that Drew and Mike and Daniel went through this evening. So two-way protected bikeway, which was the first thing presented, curb extensions, additional pedestrian crossings, the speed limit reduction to 25 miles per hour, and then what Drew was just mentioning, the lighting improvements. So those are, if you guys, it's select all, the ones that you are interested in. Winston, great question, as in like, yes, correct. So of these options, which options do you like or think could be worth pursuing as future options? And once again, this This poll is meant to serve as kind of just a gauge, but most of the conversation is going to be happening in the breakout rooms, which is what we'll go into next. So, and our 82 responses with some trickling in still. And is everyone having an okay time doing the multiple choice if you want to on this one? Is that working for folks? Oh, Brian, you didn't get a poll again. Brian, do you want to send us a message? And Katerina, you can send us a message directly and we'll tally it up with the poll responses. I'm not sure why it's not working. All right, maybe a couple more seconds. We're at 92. And Brian and Katerina, if you guys want to send us a message, we'll add it in to the other results for the meeting summary. All right. So can you see the responses? 62% say two-way protected bike lane, followed by curb extensions, then lighting improvements, then additional pedestrian crossings and speed limit reduction to 25 miles per hour. And I understand that the percentages don't add up to 100% since it is a multiple choice answer. And we will gather these comments and graph them together. And if you're having trouble with the poll, please send us a direct message and we'll consolidate the responses. So with that, I know I keep mentioning breakout rooms. So what we're going to do now is for the remainder of the time, we will have breakout rooms available. We will have facilitators in each of the groups, along with note takers who will be there to help kind of capture the comments that you're saying verbally and also in the chat boxes. If you want to kind of approach by raising your hand or putting it in the chat boxes, your questions are welcome and we're looking forward to the discussion. If you are not talking and you're waiting to talk, please try and keep yourself muted so that everyone can hear everyone else. And our facilitator groups, if you're having trouble with the muting, unmuting, can help you take care of that as well. Time may be limited for some folks, so if you could just kind of respect other people's time and give everyone a chance to speak if they are interested. I think that is that what we have going on. We're going to open the breakout rooms, and once we do that, you'll have another button that pops up that says like enter breakout room. So you'll click on that to get put into it. If you're having trouble, I'll be staying into the main room to help you, if anyone gets stuck in the main room, to help you get to a breakout room. For discussion points, and the facilitators have some additional details, please. Oh, Ty, did you have them already go? It looks like people are going.
I just opened the room. Sorry, I wasn't sure.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I can close all the rooms.
I think you can keep
Yeah.
giving instruction.
Okay. Okay. So as part of that discussion, sharing what your thoughts are on the design concepts presented. If you have questions, we can capture and gather those. And then just really quickly, next steps, because you'll be able to leave directly from the breakout rooms. We won't be making you come back. So the plans will be posted on the website by Friday. And you can also provide input online or to the email addresses. So that's the contact information, the bottom of the slide. And then just thank you all again so much for taking the time today and for your interest in this area. So I think with that,
Natalie, all the breakout rooms are going to close in 12 seconds, so maybe.
Oh, okay, do it again. Sorry, guys. We got so excited to send them to breakout rooms.
I think folks are back.
Okay. Hey, folks, so sorry. We got so excited that our team pushed the button to send you into great breakout rooms a second too early. So just a couple of things to wrap up on. In the breakout rooms, please be respectful of other people's conversations. Give everyone a chance to kind of speak. We want to hear from you on what your thoughts are, your ideas, questions. So please bring those up to the group. We will have facilitators helping respond to them. They'll be walking through role plots. All of the groups will be going through the same activity. They're not topical based. Yes, and then I guess the next thing is that the proposed plans are to be posted on the Complete Streets website Friday of this week. So please provide your input online. If you had any friends that were unable to attend, the materials will be put on there for review. And if you have additional comments or follow-up, please call Daniel at DTS, and that's the email address to go to. And we just want to thank you again for your interest in the area and for taking the time and joining us this evening. We just wanted to do this here so you guys don't have to come back to the main room at the end. So now we can go to the breakout rooms.